All right. Welcome, friends, family, and everyone in between to Gatekeepers, the podcast that feeds the mind and the spirit. Religion, relations, economy, shopping, government, and anything in between. There's not a topic we won't touch. And our hope is always to bring it back to the truth of God's Word. Today, joining us, special guest, Joe Elizabeth Pinto. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, forgive me if I butchered it. She's an award-winning author of The Bright Side of Darkness, a poet, a mother, and just an all-around inspiration to me personally. So thank you so much, Joe, for joining us today. We met about 2 years ago at an event in Brighton, I did, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was when you had your music at the Calvary Chapel.
Yep, Calvary Chapel, Brighton. Pastor Paul Butan, I believe. And if I butchered your name, I'm sorry, Paul. But he threw an event, and they had a car show, and they had food, and they had prizes, and that's where we met. But since then, we kept in touch through Facebook, and I discovered you were an author. We had a short dialogue on Messenger about your book. I was supposed to come get the book. I never did. My bad. And I still have not read the book, and that's terrible of me. But I did get into the preface, and I was reading about the young kids, and it did kind of rapture me up. So I want to finish the book. But then I discovered that you were actually blind. You were born blind, and that for whatever reason I became a bigger fan of yours, because your spirit was just so loving, and positive, and despite this disability that you were born with, that I learned earlier, you were just this amazing presence, this bright presence. And so I said, you know what? I want her on the podcast. I want to talk to her about what causes that love and that hope and that spirit and that just a light. You're just a light to this world. So I thought having you on would be a great idea. So welcome.
Thank you.
So I guess, we can start with your story, and then we'll kind of lead into the book. But I want the origin story of you, like, I hope that's not too much to ask, but and you can. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but condense it. But
I guess I figured out a long time ago in the very beginning that life isn't fair.
Yeah.
And once you learn that, the rest is easy.
Right.
And you can learn it a lot of ways. You can be born into poverty, or you can be born with a disability, or whatever your circumstances are. If you get over that lesson, the rest is just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
So I figured that out, and what are you going to do? You're either going to give up or you're going to persist.
Right.
And then if you persist, you're either going to persist with joy and gratitude, or you're going to persist and be miserable.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more fun and a lot more uplifting, and you're going to have a better life if you persist with joy and gratitude.
Yeah.
And I don't remember sitting down and thinking all this stuff through, because I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I just lived as a kid does.
Yeah.
And I was born in 1971, so I was born just in time for the laws to change so that I could integrate the public schools, because they changed in 1975. So I grew up here in Brighton, and I grew up in time to go to school in 1976 when the schools opened to disabled students.
Right.
So I walked into...
Prior to that, it wasn't allowed, huh?
No. The blind kids went to the School for the Deaf and Blind in Colorado Springs.
Wow.
So I walked into kindergarten in 1976, and they didn't quite know what to do with me.
Yeah.
They figured it out, and I figured it out, and we kind of blazed that trail together.
Yeah.
And it was quieter than the integration of Little Rock High School. Nobody, stopped me at the door or anything, but it was really as momentous as all that was.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated from high school in 1989 and went to college in Greeley.
Yeah.
And I hit the wall because...
So prior to that, though, was there any adversity that you faced, being a blind kid in school? Because I know I have an autistic son, and I worry often that he would be picked on for his autism, because you could tell he's autistic. He's socially awkward, and he doesn't have the social skills to kind of fit in and make friends, and so I worry about him often. But you being blind, did you have to face any of that? And if you did, how did you get through it?
Oh yeah, some of it was from the kids, and some of it was from the adults. And
wow.
If you want the truth,
Yes,
I got my own.
Yeah.
Some of it I learned to be quiet and ignore a lot, but I got mine back.
Yeah. Karma, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Some of it I did nicely, and some of it I did quietly when nobody was looking.
Yeah. Which is, it's humanity.
You do what you do, and you have a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other one.
Right, right. Well, listen, I would be lying to you if I sit here and told you that I never sought out revenge. We're human, right? We're going to battle these things. So, but yeah, I asked that because, obviously in a growing society where autism and ADD and all this stuff is more common now, it seems, than it was prior. And
right.
So, I'd like to give parents an advice, on how to talk to their kids. Like, what would you have liked to hear, or what did you hear? Like, what was your parents telling you? And
my parents wanted the best for me.
Right.
But what they told me was, you have to be above and beyond. Mm-hmm. You are the ambassador for the disabled, and you need to be better, stronger, smarter.
Wow, that's a lot on your shoulders.
It was a lot on my shoulders. And it took me a lot of undoing that as an adult. Mm-hmm. Because I don't have to be. I'm a human being.
Right.
And I have to be me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a hard time undoing all that neurosis when I became an adult.
Right.
And so what I would have liked to be told is, it's okay to be normal. Mm-hmm. And yes, you have to work twice as hard to get half as far sometimes. But it's not because there's anything wrong with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the kids, you'll get picked on. I tell my daughter this all the time, but it's not you.
Yeah.
It's because of their insecurity.
Right.
What was hard was dealing with the adults who didn't want to bother.
Yeah.
And that still sticks with me sometimes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because kids are kids.
Yeah.
But adults, either, if you are paid to bother with kids, then you better bother with them.
Right. You picked that profession, so. Okay. All right, well, I know one day my son just kind of broke down crying, and he asked me, why did God make me this way? And I was just like, son, I don't have those answers. I know when sin entered the world, a lot of disease entered the world, a lot of negative things entered the world. I said, I don't know, son.
God made him perfect.
Yeah, and that's what I told him. I said, but you're perfect. You're unique. You're your own individual. There's no one like you. And God's going to use you, And my heart broke. I was in tears. He was crying. My wife was crying. It was just an overwhelming moment. But you being born like that, was there ever question, like, God, why? Or anger,
I get frustrated that the world isn't built for me sometimes.
Yeah.
But I never really was frustrated that I'm the way I am. It's more that society isn't set up for me, or that people react the way they do.
Right.
You know, Christians will come up and want to pray for me and put their hands on me, and I don't like that, because who are they to assume that God made a mistake?
Right.
You know, and they are going to fix it?
Right.
You know, there's a verse in Exodus, I think, that says, I made your mouth mute, or I made the blind and the deaf, and I wish I knew.
Let me Google it. Let me see if I can Google it. But
And I really get irritated when people try to come up and strangers come up and lay their hands on me in some parking lot, or, you know, that is the rudest thing that a Christian can do, because they're placing themselves above God by trying. They're well-meaning, and I understand that.
Yeah. Exodus 4:11, it says, and the Lord said, who gave human beings their mouths? Who made them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Is that the one?
Yes.
It's powerful.
So it's you can tell your son that.
Yeah.
It's not, doesn't say anything about autism. They didn't know what that was.
Right.
But
thank you for that. That's
it's
beautiful.
not up to human beings, because we were already made perfect.
Yeah.
And in the New Testament, Jesus says it's not a person who has sinned or his family that has sinned that made him blind. It's for the glory of God.
Yes, amen.
So,
and you know, I can speak to that in the sense, not disability, but in the sense of my own tragedy that has happened in my life. I, like you said, I can get mad at it, I can get angry at it, or I can press on, and that's what I've done. And honestly, what it's allowed me to do is to minister to people who've been sexually molested, to minister to people who battle homosexuality, to minister to people who see domestic violence, right? So in their attempt to kind of demonize and well, let me pray that God heals it, but it's like, this is my ministry. You're praying against my ministry.
I've gotten angry because I've been discriminated against. Because I had trouble finding work.
Right.
Because I've had professors tell me, I don't want you in my class.
Oh, wow.
Because I've had employers tell me, we don't hire people with disabilities.
Ooh.
We serve them. Or whatever.
Ouch.
I've gotten angry because people at checkout counters have not taken my checks, or they've said, do you know your zip code, honey? Because they think I'm that stupid.
Right, talk down to you.
Right. But I've never been angry because I can't see. Now, I've been a little sad because I can't look at my daughter.
Right.
Or because I can't see an eagle flying, or things like that. I wished sometimes that I could drive and get someplace that I need to go.
Yeah.
But everybody has things that they wish they could do. I mean, you probably have something that you wish you could do.
Yes.
That you are unable to do. Maybe you want to take your wife to
Hawaii.
Well, Hawaii. But you can't afford to go.
I cannot afford that.
So we all make assumptions about people.
Right.
But I would say that there isn't a blind person around that appreciates somebody coming up to them in the Safeway parking lot and putting their hands on their face and saying, "Man, I pray for you." That's just rude.
Right. It's so obnoxious. And I know, you know, it's intimidating. Like when I wanted to invite you on, I was like, do I ask her if she's blind? Do I come out and say it? And even when we talked on the phone the other night, I could not bring myself to ask you, because I'd read the posts and I had seen there was, you know, you had said, I'm blind, but I didn't know how to officially ask you. So for me to come up to you and say, hey, let me pray over you, is one thing, but I could barely muster the strength to ask you if
Well,
you were actually
honestly,
blind.
most of us are not afraid of the B word.
Okay.
You know, because it's not like you're telling us something we don't know. It's
Right,
not a
right.
secret. I've had people say, "Oh, because you can't, because you don't, because you are," right? And it's like, just spit it out.
Yes,
We know.
yes.
It's not a secret. Because we don't like people to say, because you don't have sight, because you're sightless, because
Right.
you're visually.
Okay.
That's just.
Pay attention, people listening. All right. It's the B word is not.
Yeah.
it's okay.
It's okay, because all those other words were made up by people who were afraid to say the B word.
Right.
Sightless and sight free and
Yeah.
low. What was it the other day? I heard low visibility. I'm going.
Man.
Do I need a foghorn or one of those beacons that they put on lighthouses?
Yeah.
They were all made up by people who were afraid to say the word blind.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to keep making up words because they're still afraid to say the word blind.
Right.
It's funny.
Just call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. That's awesome. All right, so you get out of college, or you get out of high school. Let's get back to this origin story here.
So I went to college the first time. I got a degree in human rehab services, which is basically social work.
Wow.
Tried to find a job. Nope. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Then I had gotten married. My husband came down with Lou Gehrig's disease.
Oh, wow.
6 weeks after we got married.
Oh, sorry.
Shocker.
Yeah.
And I stopped trying to get a job because he needed care. And we had no money. And he needed... So we were living in this trailer park where cops wouldn't go.
Oh, the ghetto.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the ghetto. I come from there. That's home.
And we were the only stable adults.
Mm-hmm.
And so all the kids started hanging out with us.
Oh, wow.
And it was really a blessing.
Yeah.
Because their parents were either off working or off being crazy.
Right.
And we started helping with homework and providing breakfast and being the confidants and washing clothes and just being the adults.
So can I say something to that? In the midst of your, I guess what you can consider plight or trial, there you were now mentoring kids and loving on kids in a community that otherwise wouldn't have had that. And can I just say that that's how God works, man. We think it's our plight, we think it's our disaster, but in it, God is doing something beautiful. And anyways, that was just a beautiful thing. Continue. So you're there now.
And he was getting sicker and sicker, and we were trying to make the food last through the months, and it was really hard. But it was, looking back, it was really a happy time.
Right.
Until we had to move, and then we became that in the next neighborhood we went to.
Okay.
And the one after that, as we had to move because of his wheelchairs and whatnot, that he was getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
It was just amazing. And so that's kind of part of where the inspiration for my book came from, was all these kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened to most of them because I never did hear, but I hope that I pray for a lot of those kids who are now adults.
Right.
That maybe we had some impact on their lives.
Yeah.
You know, we taught them how to ride bikes and taught a lot of them how to read or helped them with their homework or just all the little things that they weren't getting.
Right.
It kind of chokes me up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you know, I can speak to that because not having my dad in my household and having a mom lost to drugs, people like you meant everything to me. My uncle who put me in wrestling and took me to my matches, you know, you guys fill a big gap that's present, and a big void that's present. So I can honestly say, from the perspective of one of those kids, that your work carries on in us.
I just hope that people know, and that's one of the reasons that I wrote my book. I want people to understand that those things matter, and that people can do more than they think they can,
Yeah.
in little ways, with your neighbors and your nephews and your grandkids and kids from your school. You know, if you have kids that are your children's friends, and they're at loose ends, it's a whole lot better than sitting around griping that today's generation is no good and teenagers aren't going to amount to anything.
Right.
And do something.
Amen. I love that. She's right. You hear that, guys? Do something, man. Get up. Get out of that self-pity, that pity party, and make a difference. Be the change you wish to see. Who said that? Gandhi?
I think so.
I think it was Gandhi, but I love it. I love it. Be the change you wish to see. Stop complaining about it and go do something about it.
Or shut up.
Or yes, I second that motion to shut up. That's awesome. So there you are. All right, you guys had to move now.
We've had to move a couple times, and then my first husband is no longer with us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Rest in peace.
He eventually got where he couldn't move.
Yeah.
And it was time.
Yeah.
So I went back to college and got another degree in grant writing and nonprofit management, and I have used that to some extent to help some nonprofits get some money for various things. But I never did find a permanent job in that, because discrimination against people with disabilities is alive and well.
Right.
So I started a business as a proofreader of Braille textbooks.
Okay.
From home.
Yeah.
When my daughter came along, I could raise her without having her in daycare, and that was important to me.
Yeah.
And then this whole time, while I was in high school, I had written a short story for an English class. And after that, I just put it away. I didn't really think about it anymore. But I couldn't forget the characters.
Right.
These kids. Smart mouthed, hard pressed, no money, no whatever, just kids. And so in the 90s, and I don't know how old you are, but this was before computers.
Yeah. I'm 32, so I've seen a little bit of it.
Yeah, you're 15 years younger than I am, but a little more than that. But so basically, though.
Yeah, I've seen it.
We
call it the Dark Ages. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Old DOS machine, floppy disk, no internet, but
I remember the floppy disks.
I wanted to learn how to use a word processor.
Yeah.
And I got tired of thinking up junk to type in, so I typed in that old short story, and it needed a lot of work. I'd been a teenager, but I've moved stuff around and deleted weak parts and added new things, and it got better. And so I showed it to my first husband, and he said, "You can't leave those kids like that. What happens next?"
Yeah.
And so I added to it, and it grew into a novel. And I added to it with the inspiration of what we'd been doing with the kids in the neighborhood.
Right.
And then I got to thinking, this could be a really inspirational thing about mentoring.
Yeah.
And what we talked about, be the change or shut up.
Yeah.
So it went from there, but life happens, and I went back to school, and so I picked it up, put it down, picked it up, put it down, and then in 2014, 5 years ago, my mom suddenly passed away of colon cancer.
Oh.
Boom, 10 days
Sorry.
from the time we knew about it till the time she died. Just
Dang, that quick.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which, in the case of all the cancer she had, was probably the most merciful thing that could have happened. But
Right.
it was a shock.
Yeah.
And I got the message.
Yeah.
You don't know how long you're going to be here.
Right.
So I thought, I'm going to have to get this out there.
Yeah.
Because, I could be done.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to find a publisher, which I'd been doing, I've been looking around, and everybody said, well, this is great, we love it, but it doesn't fit into our little boxes of what kind of book it is. Is it inspirational? Is it coming of age? Is it young adult? Is it adult? Is it what? It's kind of not in our little pigeonhole.
Right.
So I said, well, then I'll just publish it myself.
That's what I'm talking about. See, that's why I'm a fan. Because you're just like, you can't stop me. There's nothing that can stop me. I love it. Anyways, continue.
So I published it on Amazon and then made it into an audio, because having it accessible for the blind and the autistic and the different groups of people is important to me.
Right.
Made it into a Kindle, and then I've been marketing it. And it's no Stephen King, but it's been doing all right.
Yeah. Well, let me grab it from the table and so I can show the camera. Do you mind?
It won 2 awards, one from the Indie Publishing, which is it's actually international, and one is from the Colorado Independent Publishing.
Yeah. The Bright Side of Darkness, a novel by J.E. Pinto. And they could find it on Amazon,
Barnes & Noble.
And
it's locally here in Gerald's Watch Repair. Also
in Brighton.
Yes.
Gerald's Watch Repair.
And welcome to the bookstore.
Okay. And with that, we're approaching our half mark. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to just kind of wrap this up. And I'll give you, time to close or whatever. Okay. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about the break. So anyways, The Bright Side of Darkness. So you finished your novel. And nobody would publish it for you. Well, they gave you a hard time anyways. And so you decided to take the reins, do it by yourself, like the awesome person you are. And now here it is. The Bright Side of Darkness. And again, it can be found Amazon, Kindle,
Audible.com,
Barnes & Noble. And what was the place in Brighton you said?
It's at Welcome to the Bookstore.
Welcome to the Bookstore.
And it's at Gerald's Watch Repair.
Gerald's Watch Repair.
By Boom Gardens.
By Boom Gardens. So for those of you locals in Colorado, go support your local artist. I can't stress that enough. We gets no support. I tell you, we gets no support. So, listen, I can't stress this enough, Joe. You are truly an inspiration to me. From now even hearing your story, because I didn't have your story prior. Blind from birth. Just to me is amazing in itself. Because I know so many people who just their wife will cheat on them, and they'll want to give up, or they'll lose their job, and they'll want to give up. And suicide, I did a show on suicide, and it's at an all-time high. I think in 2017, it was like the 10th leading cause of death in America.
Oh, that's so sad.
And Colorado, it ranked number 10, I think, in the nation. I'd have to look at my stats. But
well, not to say I've never been to that point. I think we probably all have at one time.
Right.
But think what I would have missed.
Yeah, exactly. The lives you wouldn't have been able to change, or the lives you wouldn't even be able to have. I mean, now you're raising a beautiful, daughter.
Right? I got to that point once.
Yeah.
I think it was about 5 years ago after my mom died and things got really hard.
Yeah.
And then I was able to pull myself back from the brink. I think it was actually that dog there
Yeah.
that helped me because I
What's
just
what's his name?
her name
Her
is
name.
Anlin, and I just laid in the chair and
Yeah.
held her for a lot of hours, and because I realized I had a mom contract, you
Yeah.
can't really get out of those.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm so glad because it's spring and like you
Mom
said,
contract.
you read my
I love that.
you read my thing about the irises, and I sat out there
Mm-hmm.
the other day and enjoyed those. And I mean,
Beautiful. Oh yeah, did I mention she was a poet? She has some beautiful poetry.
I have
What's
a
your Facebook page?
It's author J.E. Pinto.
Author J.E. Pinto on Facebook, and she posts her poetry and she posts inspiration, and just go check her out. Be inspired like I have been inspired. Author J.E. Pinto, right?
Yeah. So suicide is, what do they say? It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yes. Yes. Yes, it is. And it leaves a devastating trail behind because now you create a lifetime of problems for the people that loved you.
That's true.
And that's, if they can just focus on that, I think it would change a lot of minds.
Well, what the minister, I had a pastor, and she told me at the time I was in that dark place, she said, my daughter was 6 at the time, and what finally stopped me from even thinking in that direction was, she said, your daughter will be old enough that she'll always wonder if she could have saved you.
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay, then I guess that's not an option.
Right, right. Well, I'm glad you didn't. And I feel like your story can bring so much hope to people battling depression, battling disabilities, battling adversities even, because if you can do it, we can do it. And not to minimize your effort, not to minimize your character, because you are a great person, but there is strength in our adversity, and you exemplify that.
The way I look at it, we all do pretty amazing things because we don't have a choice. There's only one
I like
who
that.
ever did it when his back wasn't against the wall.
Yeah, yeah.
The rest of us do it because we don't have another option.
That is very true.
He did it when he had all kinds of other options.
Right, right. I love that. Did you hear that, guys? Yeah. Thanks again. I mean, if you had to summarize your life's mission in a tagline or two, what would you want to tell people? What legacy would you want to leave?
Wow.
That's almost an impossible question. I'm sorry. That's bad. That's a terrible question. But I'm still gonna let you out. That's right.
Live with gratitude and joy, and you always can. A lot of times people think, well, this situation or that. I can't do that. You always can. It's a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Find the gratitude and the joy in everything.
Yeah.
And you can if you look hard enough.
Yeah.
There's something to be grateful for.
Right.
And there's joy in everything.
Amen. And even as you speak, I hear the birds chirping in the background.
Mm-hmm. I just noticed that.
As you're saying, there is joy in everything. The birds are singing. I think that is so beautiful. But yeah, no, you're doing an amazing job. I want to work with you more in ministry, so I'm going to be dial. You should have never gave me your number. You done messed up now. Because old Hunt's going to be on you like, hey, come speak at this event.
Oh, that'd be great. That would be great.
I think your voice is powerful. I think your life in itself just exemplifies strength, ambition, determination. And so, man, you've inspired me and you've ministered to me, and that's why I wanted to bring you on today's podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And so I think with that being said, we'll wrap this up. If there's anything you would like to say, to shout outs, plugs, now's that opportunity, and you can have a closing statement.
I think we've pretty much done it. You
I
gotta
did.
read the book.
I pretty much asked you. Yeah, go check out The Bright Side of Darkness.
You gotta read the book.
I need to read a book. Yeah, for sure. And she's leaving me this. She's gonna sign it. So this is my next read. And maybe after I read it, we'll bring you back on and we'll actually get into the details of the book and the characters and
that'll be fun.
Yeah. So do you think the kids in the book were based off the kids that you guys ministered to?
No, not really.
Yeah.
They had been made up before
that. Okay.
that.
Okay.
They just came to me. Some people have asked if they were based off the Outsiders characters, as he hinted, and I don't think so either. I read those books and loved them, The Outsiders.
Right.
But I don't think they were based off those characters either. And there's a blind character in the book, and I don't think she was based off me either. She's way more bold than I was at that age. She might have been who I would have liked to be.
Yeah.
But I was not quite so brave at
right.
17 or 16 or whatever she was. I might be that brave now.
Yeah.
But it took me a little longer to find my voice.
Yeah. So what's next? Book of poems, another novel?
I don't know. I've been just posting and writing and marketing that book. My daughter is still at an age where she needs her mom a lot.
Yeah.
And to write another novel, I have to really immerse in it. So I haven't really taken that on.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to maybe someday, but you only have an 11-year-old once.
Yeah, now that's your focus, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I respect that. Well, thank you again for joining us, and like I said, you're an inspiration to me. So, and I would just want to close. I don't have a prepared close statement, but fight through it, man. Don't let the adversities of life beat you or bring you down or stop you from God's purpose. If you end it in your tragedy or in your pain, you're missing out on so much that God has for you.
Feed your soul every day.
Yeah.
Do some little thing to feed your soul every day. Even Jesus did that.
Yes. Yes.
If you can find some little thing every day that's good, that's uplifting, that will help you.
Yeah. Amen. I second that.
What, you think we're leaving? You think we're leaving? Huh?
Well, thank you again.
She's ready to close.
Yeah, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks, guys, for joining us on this episode of Gatekeepers, the podcast. We hope you were blessed by it. We will see you on the next one. God bless. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.